In today's video, we are going to talk about undoubtedly the deadliest battle during the World War II, which claimed life of about 1.2 million people. The battle is none other than the Battle of Stalingrad, which was fought between the Axis powers and the Soviet Union for the city of Stalingrad. The Battle of Stalingrad, that raged on from the 23rd of August 1942 to the 2nd of February 1943, was a major battle on the Eastern Front of World War II, where Nazi Germany and its allies unsuccessfully fought the Soviet Union for control of the city of Stalingrad, that was later renamed as Volgograd in southern Russia. The battle was marked by fierce close-quarters combat and direct assaults on civilians and air raids, with the battle epitomizing urban warfare. The Battle of Stalingrad was the deadliest battle to take place during the Second World War. Today, the Battle of Stalingrad is universally regarded as the turning point in the European theater of war, as it forced the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht to withdraw considerable military forces from other areas in occupied Europe to replace German losses on the Eastern Front, ending with the rout of the Six Field Armies of Army Group B, including the destruction of Nazi Germany's Sixth Army and an entire corps of its 4th Panzer Army. The victory at Stalingrad energized the Red Army and shifted the balance of power in the favor of the Soviets. Stalingrad was strategically important to both sides as a major industrial and transport hub on the Volga River. Whoever controlled Stalingrad would have access to the oil fields of the Caucasus and would gain control of the Volga. Germany, already operating on dwindling fuel supplies, focused its efforts on moving deeper into Soviet territory and taking the oil fields at any cost. On the 4th of August, the Germans launched an offensive by using the 6th Army and elements of the 4th Panzer Army. The attack was supported by intense Luftwaffe bombing that reduced much of the city to rubble. The battle degenerated into house-to-house fighting as both sides poured reinforcements into the city. By mid-November, the Germans, at great cost, had pushed the Soviet defenders back into narrow zones along the west bank of the river. On the 19th of November, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus, a two-pronged attack targeting the Romanian armies protecting the 6th Army's flanks. The Axis flanks were overrun and the 6th Army was cut off and surrounded in the Stalingrad area. Adolf Hitler was determined to hold the city at all costs and forbade the 6th Army from attempting a breakout. Instead, attempts were made to supply it by air and to break the encirclement from the outside. The Soviets were successful in denying the Germans the ability to resupply through the air, which strained the German forces to their breaking point. Nevertheless, the German forces were determined to continue their advance, and heavy fighting continued for another 2 months. On the 2nd of February 1943, the German 6th Army, having exhausted their ammunition and food, finally capitulated after over 5 months of fighting, making it the first of Hitler's field armies to surrender during World War II. By the spring of 1942, despite the failure of Operation Barbarossa to decisively defeat the Soviet Union in a single campaign, the Wehrmacht had captured vast expanses of territory, including Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltic republics. On the Western Front, Germany held most of Europe. The U-boat offensive in the Atlantic was holding American support at bay, and in North Africa, Erwin Rommel had just captured Tobruk. During the defense of Stalingrad, the Red Army deployed 5 armies in and around the city, namely the 28th, 51st, 57th, 62nd, and 64th Armies, and an additional 9 armies in the encirclement counteroffensive using the 24th, 65th, 66th Armies and 16th Air Army from the north as part of the Don Front offensive, and 1st Guards Army, 5th Tank, 21st Army, 2nd Air Army, and 17th Air Army from the south as part of the Southwestern Front. David Glantz indicated that 4 hard-fought battles, collectively known as the Kotleben operations, north of Stalingrad, where the Soviets made their greatest stand, decided Germany's fate before the Nazis ever set foot in the city itself, and were a turning point in the war. Beginning in late August, continuing in September and into October, the Soviets committed between 2 and 4 armies in hastily coordinated and poorly controlled attacks against the Germans' northern flank. The actions resulted in more than 200,000 Soviet army casualties, but did slow the German assault. On the 23rd of August, the Sixth Army reached the outskirts of Stalingrad in pursuit of the 62nd and 64th Armies, which had fallen back into the city. Kleist later said after the war, the capture of Stalingrad was subsidiary to the main aim. It was only of importance as a convenient place in the bottleneck between Don and the Volga, where we could block an attack on our flank by Russian forces coming from the east. At the start, Stalingrad was no more than a name on the map to us. The Soviets had enough warning of the German advance to ship grain, cattle, and railway cars across the Volga out of harm's way, but Stalin refused to evacuate the 400,000 civilian residents of Stalingrad. This harvest victory left the city short of food even before the German attack began. Before the Heer reached the city itself, the Luftwaffe had cut off shipping on the Volga, vital for bringing supplies into the city. Between 25 and the 31st of July, 32 Soviet ships were sunk, with another 9 crippled. The battle began with the heavy bombing of the city by Generaloberst Wolfram von Richthofen's Luftflotte 4. Some 1,000 tons of bombs were dropped in 48 hours, more than in London at the height of the Blitz. At least 90% of the city's housing stock was obliterated. The exact number of civilians killed is unknown, but was most likely very high. Around 40,000 civilians were taken to Germany as slave workers. Some fled during battle, and a small number were evacuated by the Soviets. But by February 1943, only 10,000 to 60,000 civilians were still alive. Much of the city was smashed to rubble, although some factories continued production while workers joined in the fighting. The Stalingrad tractor factory continued to turn out T-34 tanks up until German troops burst into the plant. The 369th Croatian Reinforced Infantry Regiment was the only non-German unit selected by the Wehrmacht to enter Stalingrad city during assault operations. It fought as part of the 100th Jaeger Division. Stalin rushed all available troops to the east bank of the Volga, some from as far away as Siberia. Regular river ferries were quickly destroyed by the Luftwaffe, which then targeted troop barges being towed slowly across by tugs. It has been said that Stalin prevented civilians from leaving the city in the belief that their presence would encourage greater resistance from the city's defenders. Civilians, including women and children, were put to work building trench works and protective fortifications. A massive German air raid on the 23rd of August caused a firestorm, killing hundreds and turning Stalingrad into a vast landscape of rubble and burnt ruins. 90% of the living space in the Voroshilovsky area was destroyed. Between 23 and the 26th of August, Soviet reports indicate 955 people were killed and another 1,181 wounded as a result of the bombing. Casualties were estimated to have been 40,000, though they were likely exaggerated, and after the 25th of August, the Soviets did not record any civilian and military casualties as a result of air raids. Thanks for watching till the end. Like the video if you liked, and subscribing to the channel will be highly appreciated.